So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll let people catch up if they need to. So welcome. I want to thank all of you for participating in our CIS IT Roundtable. I want to give you a little backdrop of where this is coming from. I'm on the Trends Planning Committee. The Trends is a conference that's run with out of MODAC for CTE faculty and staff yearly. We were unable to host that conference in October like we normally do. And one valuable piece of the Trends Conference has always been faculty getting together and talk about best practices, talk about things that they do. And during our Trends Planning Committee here in the fall, because we were trying to put together a virtual conference, a faculty member from Macomb was like, well, we don't want to wait too long to have a roundtable again. We want to know what people are doing now. There might be some things that people can incorporate that they're hearing into their spring semester. And so that's kind of was the onus of putting something together now. Now, from that, we've really had some great conversations. This is the fourth one that I've sat in. I also sat through welding and machining and manufacturing. I've also sat in HVAC. And one common thread, obviously, is we're all living the same thing. But it would have been really neat if, I think by packaging them by per technology area, one thing I noticed is that we could learn a lot from each other. There's some things that welding faculty did that in terms of projecting a lab and created that, and I'll bring some of those up, that could have been helpful to others. And so what I'm going to do is I am recording this meeting, and I will send out the minutes along with, and I'll send the minutes to every meeting that we've had. This you can kind of get a snapshot of what other people have talked about, along with the context from the meeting. So again, part of the roundtable is also getting together and getting information from your colleagues and learning who your colleagues are across the state. That's important as well. And I'll send that contact information out. So before we get into the meat of the meeting, and I'd like to kind of go around the room and see who we got. So I'm going to start with Monroe with Dr. Hilliker. Is that correct?
Will is fine.
Well, okay.
Yeah, no. I'm from Monroe County. We're all the way down the bottom of the state, almost to Ohio. I'm in cybersecurity, PC support, sysadmin.
Fantastic. Mr. Claiborne.
Hello, my name is Eric Claiborne. I'm with Southwestern Michigan College. We are in Cass County, right above Indiana there. And similarly, I teach our IT networking and everything that comes with that. So I'm curious about what you guys are doing as far as teaching IT networking and some changes you might be doing, just to get some ideas. So
Great, thank you. Welcome. Scott from Northwestern.
Yeah, hi, my name is Scott Gopels. I'm a faculty member at Northwestern Michigan College. I teach primarily in our infrastructure program, which involves networking, operating systems, as well as cybersecurity courses.
Great. Keith, North Central.
Yeah, Keith Kelly from Northwestern Michigan College. I teach in the engineering technology program, and specifically Python, embedded controllers, sensors, that sort of thing. Also run a workforce development program through our incubator space in Traverse City.
Thank you. Welcome. Marty, KVCC.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Hey, it's Marty Adams. I'm from KVCC, teach mostly programming. Our general intro to CIS classes, those types of things, a lot of web stuff. So that's it.
Great. Welcome. Jason, Lansing. We can't hear you, Jason. We'll go to Laurice. Did I pronounce that correctly?
I'm Laurice Ibrahim. I teach at Wayne County Community College. I teach web design, introduction to business management, technology management.
You good, Jason?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Jason Mitchell from Lansing Community College. I teach networking, cybersecurity, computer support and repair, run our ethical hacking club, and coordinator for our Center for Cybersecurity Education, which is our outreach to the community. Yeah, so that's what I do.
Great, welcome.
Thanks.
Dee Collins.
Hi, I'm from WC3 as well, and I'm coming from a totally different genre. I'm in healthcare information system technologies, and with the onset of our electronic health record and the simulations of information from different hospital systems, I wanted to take a look at what the possibilities was open up so that we could gather together some of that technology to teach in our surrounding WC3.
Great, thank you, and welcome. Adam Richardson.
I can hear the phone.
Hello. I work with Jason. I'm a fellow cybersecurity professor at Lansing Community College. I teach what they want me to teach, whatever they assign that semester. But yeah, here to just learn and grow as all of you are.
Great, welcome. Melanie.
Hi there, I'm Melanie Lever. I'm from North Central Michigan College. I'm the Associate Dean of Instructional Technology, and I'm just really interested in hearing more about some of the successes and the challenges folks are experiencing, both pre-COVID and most recently during the pandemic.
Great, thank you, welcome. Michelle White. Okay, let's go to Bradley Hesser. Okay, we'll catch up with you. And then we have Akina.
Oh,
that's okay. Akina?
yes.
Yeah, just where are you from and what area do you teach in?
Wayne County Community College. And I teach public speaking, but at my other college, I teach instructional design.
Okay. All right, well, fantastic, welcome. I don't know if
Thank you.
And again, I think I said, my name is Ken Flowers. I'm the Dean of Career Ed at Lake Michigan College, and I'm merely just facilitating these groups and we'll, incorporating, just kind of working it all together. And so basically what we've been doing is, from a school or faculty perspective, what we've been asking faculty to do is provide some of the things that that you're doing, the impact that the pandemic has, what it's done in your area, and some of the things that you've done to help continue not only what you're doing in your area, but IT and CIS has generally been well poised ahead of most of your other programs anyway. But what have you done to kind of continue to move the needle to some of the changes you've made, some of the curriculum updates that you've done, and just kind of all told since we've been pushed in this March. So I'm going to start with you, Eric. So talk to us about what you're doing. And kind of when you say things like people say, oh, we teach hybrid, we teach this, kind of go into detail what hybrid means to you, because believe it or not, it means different things at different schools. And talk about your software you might be using and or your LMS. So Eric Claiborne.
So our LMS is Moodle. What I've tried to do is integrate the learning platform that we use with our book publisher, Cengage. They have a product called MindTap. I'm not sure if anyone's aware of that. So students are able to use that, do some of their work in that platform, and then it's able with an LTI that we hooked into our Moodle environment, the grades are able to go right into our LMS. Other things that I've done to supplement our on-premise lab environment is I've begun using some of Amazon's classroom approach for just kind of like an open lab environment, allowing students to take what they've learned in class and just kind of allow them to use that space. Just give them a kind of a sheet that gives them direction of what they're supposed to do after we've lectured about it. It just says, okay, go out there, you have access to the server and these other tools in that platform, and just kind of make that outcome happen. So that's kind of what I've done during the pandemic, because now that we've had to go to remote learning, students aren't able to use our on-site resources. So, but I'm also curious about what other people are doing, and that's kind of the approach I'm taking.
How's your Eric? How's your enrollment? What is your enrollment looking like?
Enrollment has dipped for us. I'm not sure what other schools are experiencing. I've heard it's common right now in our industry as far as enrollment, but that just depends on who you ask, I suppose. But for our program itself, it has dipped somewhat. But we're hoping to make some headway with that. We're doing some virtual recruiting. Recently, actually this summer, we've developed a new esports initiative to allow for not only recruiting, but also some retention, allowing students to be able to do some things on site. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, people can't really gather together much to kind of do that within the esports environment that we have. But it's something that our students wanted to do. So what we did was we just allowed them to build it themselves. And they're the ones who built the computers from the ground up, managed the practice and everything. And we've had a couple of sessions that we can, that some games that we've had with other schools, but we're trying the best we can to develop a better recruiting process and retention as well. And also to try to deliver more of our content online through our LMS and through other platforms as well.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Eric? Well, thank you. And so one of the things that, when I'm taking notes here, I'm going to put down that you use MindTap and Moodle, and you're using Amazon Classroom. So we might come back to that. And also I'll highlight those things in our notes next to, your name. So potentially if somebody has questions afterwards, they can reach out to you and say, hey, well, how is Amazon Classroom impacting? Did you use it before pandemic, after? I mean, are you going to continue to use it? So things like that, Eric. So that's kind of what the notes look like. So Scott, tell us some of the things that you're doing. If you've changed your classroom, what you've done, and just kind of what your enrollment is and things like that.
Sure. So for our program at Northwestern Michigan College, what we ended up doing for the most part is going to a delivery method that we call, based on what students had asked to have it called, is called live streamed. So essentially it is Zoom, but it's during our normal meeting times. So a number of our courses where we could still do face-to-face, we do that, although that's been somewhat limited. But for the most part, we've gone to either a totally online, a hybrid format where it's online and live streamed, or significantly just replaced the face-to-face component, made it totally interactive with Zoom using live streamed. For me, specifically in my classes, it has gone pretty well. So over the summer, I had to redevelop one of our basic networking classes to take advantage of labs where students could do the work at home versus using the equipment that we would have in the classroom. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges for me. For some of our more advanced classes where we would teach cybersecurity and some of our server classes, I don't know if you can see the virtual background I have, but that's my infrastructure I have to teach with. We got that equipment a few years ago as part of the C-STEP grant. And so I have 21 Dell servers, I have storage area networks, I have switching gear, all of that stuff set up with a VPN. So I basically can run multiple classes off a single physical server through virtual machines and nested virtualization. So the students are able to use a VPN to connect into our equipment, and then remote desktop into a specific virtual machine, and then set up VMs, work with Callie and for the cybersecurity classes, for the Windows Server courses, they can create VMs all day long. I also teach in one of our security courses based on Palo Alto. So they get a chance to use a Palo Alto network, fire it up from scratch, configure NAT rules, security rules, everything that they need to do as part of our Security Plus. So as far as their hands-on ability, it really hasn't changed. And just instead of doing it in the classroom, they're using it through the VPN at home. So the resources that I primarily use are Cengage books. I do not use MindTap. I prefer to use my own labs just because I found the MindTap stuff was too cookie cutter, where it was step-by-step approach. And I wanted them more of a critical thinking role where they had to, here's where you start, here's where you got to get to, and you got to work and try to figure out how to do it, get there yourself with my guidance. So that's how I do my labs. I do complement the material, or I should say supplement the material also with LabSim where I can. So we're using LabSim for a number of our classes as well. As far as enrollment, yes, it's taken a dip. I think part of it is because I haven't been able to do a lot of the marketing that I've done in the past. At NMC for the last essentially 5 years, we've offered what we call CIT Industry Night Out events, where we would partner up with a local company and they would bring our students in. Our students would go to the facility, get a tour about what the company does. They provide them a meal, pizza, soda, whatever, and get a chance to interact with our students. So not only did the students get a chance to create a community amongst themselves, but us as faculty got a chance to work with them as well as introduce them to business. And it was really successful. There were times where we would have on average 60 to 100 students show up. And we also would invite students from the local Career Tech Center to bring in those secondary students just to get them familiar with our program and what we do, so that if they chose our college, they already knew who we were. But with COVID, that's put a kibosh on that. So my goal is for this spring to host a couple of those events, but make them more of a digital virtual event so that we can still at least have that community with not only our existing students, but some from the high school. So we've had to adjust things, change things around quite a bit. My class structure is pretty much the same, except it's live streamed. We're still going to continue that this spring, and we're hoping that things will change back in the fall, but we're still going to be ready to go live streamed if we need to.
Thank you, Scott. Scott, do you record your sessions that are live stream and then maybe post them on your LMS?
Yeah, so we use Ensemble as a video recording piece that's tied to our LMS, which is Moodle. So there's an integration between Zoom and Ensemble so that I can actually say record to the cloud, and it will take that Zoom session and automatically put it in my library in Ensemble. And then all I got to do is copy it to a playlist, and it automatically is published into the LMS for the students. So even if a student couldn't make my class session, they still have access to the material. And with COVID, with the issues with people having kids at home and families and trying to do a work schedule when they could, I've actually had a number of my students that actually almost took it like an online class. So to them, they were doing it on their own, not necessarily coming to class, or some people would come one day and not another. But the way the semester is finished up, it's finished pretty well. A lot of the students have done well this semester in the environment that we've had to work with. Is it optimal? No, but my biggest concern is trying to do the community outreach to still try to bring in those students, because as it's already been mentioned, enrollment is down, and it's down across the nation. And trying to find a way to get every one of these kids interested in IT and keep them interested has been tough.
Well, great. Thank you, Scott. Any questions for Scott about any things that he talked about? All right, fantastic. Melanie, tell us what you're doing.
Like a lot of you, we're making more use of our LMS, which is Brightspace. As someone else mentioned, we're making use of Zoom too for live instruction. During the times that classes would normally meet, we're calling that virtual delivery. Something else that we're doing, our library is open by appointment only. during this time. So students can make an appointment to go to the library to get internet access if that's something that they didn't have at home. If they need access to a computer with a webcam in order to participate in those Zoom meetings. They can also check out long-term laptops to take home that are pre-configured with any of the software that they'll need for the class. Our enrollment in our CIS related programs has been fairly stable. So we've been pretty fortunate, you know, in that area.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Melanie? Dee, let's talk about what you're doing.
Well, at WC3, for my particular discipline, I do use Cengage, and I do use the Mind Tap. However, like Scott, I altered it a little bit so that can be more conducive to how students would be able to interact and really get the on-the-ground experience, especially dealing with healthcare. And its own, it has its own line of thought and training in that regards. Our college used for its LMS Blackboard, and we have to be Blackboard certified to be able to teach through that genre there. Another one that we use with Blackboard is Blackboard Collaborative, where they're able to have some face-to-face interaction when you use it collaborative, but students do not particularly like that because it isn't give you the same touch and feely as though Zoom would be able to do so. But as using Zoom as a means of teaching, the college does not sanction that as a viable mode. So we're limited to Blackboard Collaborative. The textbooks that I have used in the past did allow us to use simulated labs for healthcare, particularly in our healthcare IT systems or applications that we use. And they allow us to have what they would call an access code that would give us ability to access those particular healthcare applications, patient management system, electronic health record, dissemination of information of patient portals, those type of things that have been helpful in that regard. That's it.
Thanks, Dee. Any questions for Dee? Okay, Will.
Hi there. One of our first challenges was defining online versus hybrid versus in person. It seemed, at least outside of the CIS realm, that we had a lot of instructors that were forcing synchronous communication during online courses. And by our definition, online courses are not supposed to be synchronous. They can be asynchronous. So we had to really define that. I know myself, Brad Hester is also from Monroe, and Zach, and we have a instructional technologist there that we had to spend some time teaching other faculty how to use the tools. The main tools that we use, our LMS is Brightspace Desire to Learn, and we have campus licenses for Zoom and for Teams. So it's kind of based on your preference. Right now, most folks like Zoom better. It's a little easier to use. I'm starting to like more of the integration with Teams and OneNote and items like that, but that's, you know, us being nerds, we like the new cool stuff. I personally have been using OBS. My son is a amateur YouTuber, and he introduced me to OBS, and it seems to be one of the easier tools to record with and edit. Well, I don't edit in OBS, but Inet seems to be doing a decent job. And then what I do is I upload it to YouTube and make it, I think it's restricted, so only people with the link can find it. And so all of my courses have shifted to the online asynchronous format. Some of the courses, it's fine. What I refer to as a vocabulary theories courses, those are fine. Hands-on is a bit more of a struggle. Most of my textbooks are through Cengage, and I use MindTap. And I agree with Scott that this was really my first semester playing with their labs, and they are too cookie cutter. So probably next semester, I'm going to probably combine my labs and their labs together. Maybe start with, the MindTap ones, the step-by-step, and then give them my own to increase the critical thinking aspect of it. Let's see here. We on campus, when I say we, the CIS instructors, there's only 3 of us. We started our own open lab sessions. If any of you ever come down and visit us, we have a brand new student success building. They took 2 of our buildings and connected them with the big center, and it's fantastic. Completely closed off right now, but it's fantastic. So we opened up one of our labs, and one of our full-time instructors were there anywhere between 4 and 8 hours a day for anybody to drop in and use our labs. And of course, we were 6 feet away wearing masks. Some folks had face shields. Let's see here. We use Zoom and Teams primarily. And I did take advantage. I'm not sure if you all saw this. Cengage has been offering a ton of training for free. The last one I just went through was for Teams. And so now I'm a Microsoft certified something or another. But it was a nice way to get more details on how to use Teams. They did integration into PowerPoint and OneNote and how to use the outside applications inside of Teams, so your students go to one spot instead of linking here, linking somebody else. And I think that's what I have for the moment. Questions?
Yeah, questions. Any questions for Will? So I hope, go ahead.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I hope that, one of the things that I'm, catching from everyone, and again, I'll make sure to go back through this recording and take great notes, is everyone's using a different type of software, a different type of something to help them get through what they need. But they've also are doing something similar. I've heard MindTap a few times. And so that's why we bring you together as a collective. Is somebody said, hey, I've turned mine into different labs. And so again, that's why we'll link these notes to individuals to say, hey, hopefully we're able to help our colleagues along get through this, because as you notice, we're all suffering through this together. I think we've all had to work in redefining our roles. We started off the term, or redefining our teaching methods, what they're called. We started off with 2 or 3 teaching methods. Now we have 5 because of the difference between hybrid, asynchronous, synchronous, online, 100% online. And so now it's confusing to students when they don't know what they're signing up for. So I totally understand but again, things like OBS, I have not heard of that before. And so that's something I'll be able to pass along to not only this group, but faculty as well. And I'll look for, I'll also link resources to so you can look it up as we go through. So thank you, Will. Keith, Kelly.
Yeah, hi. So all my classes went virtual, and at NMC, as Scott said, we refer to them as live stream when they're synchronous. And I was, I was an early adopter of the asynchronous online stuff years ago, and did a lot of stuff with asynchronous, open entry, open exit stuff years ago as well, and just got to not like that a whole lot. So I really took a look at what was going on with virtual teams in the workplace, and really wanted to format the classroom like that, where we were essentially doing a video conference. So again, using Zoom, live stream, which means it's synchronous. They had to show up for class sessions. And in fact, I did not record class sessions. So I did a lot of recording up front of specific operations and so forth that they had to do. Those were available, but the class sessions they had to attend. And again, these were coding sessions. So my plan was to do a lot of partner coding So I used, I'll show you this piece of hardware. So we delivered this little rover robot to everybody. So they were able to use a common platform, a Raspberry Pi platform. They could access it with a Chromebook or a Mac or PC. The installations were consistent because everybody was installing it on the same piece of hardware. And we've been using these small robots for a long time for coding activities because of the physical nature and the feedback the student gets on them. So I mean, that part of it was very, very positive. Students were able to build it, use an app on the phone to run it initially, and then by the end of the semester, they actually had the app coded themselves. So again, nice format. Some of the things that didn't work well, though, is I really anticipated during these live stream Zoom sessions to do a lot of breakouts and have partner coding and that sort of thing. My assumption was that everybody's environment was going to be like mine. In other words, I'm sitting here. I've got my local connection over Ethernet to my little rover robot here. I'm Zooming, and we can do a breakout and bring up and do screen share and that sort of thing. And what come to find out, I mean, people were using multiple devices. I had people Zooming on their phone and doing some coding on a Chromebook, and it was just kind of a mismatch of stuff that they were connecting with and working with. So we really couldn't do the collaborative stuff like I hoped. So overall, good success, but we need to work with collaborative tools. I think there's some successes out there, or some answers out there. Things like we use Visual Studio Code. There's a live share tool that will allow them to basically just do like a Google Doc and write their code and be interactive between each other. So again, some good learning, and looking forward to the next iteration this spring.
Well, great. Thanks, Keith. Any questions for Keith? I lost Louise. Okay, let's go to Bradley.
All right, so as we look at the CIS side of it, so what I also teach is I teach graphic design, digital media, game design side of our game design and development, along with the CIS. So with that, the challenge I have is applications and the specialized software with the Adobe apps. And everything that I teach is all asynchronous. And the problem that we've really ran into is we used to do HTML access to all of our Adobe applications, and then students had to go in, and of course now they're downloading them and working from there. The big thing I'm using, I stick to Mac. I'm a Mac guy, obviously, with the Adobe apps. So one thing that we've had to deal with the pandemic is students who are using Macs for our Intro to CIS class, especially when we get into Microsoft Access. So if anyone has any good solutions around that, it'd be great. Because right now we don't have one. But with my classes, I record all of my lectures. I just simply use QuickTime for all my screen captures, captures all the audio. If I go in and do editing, I'll certainly use Premiere Pro. And then typically I upload them into YouTube, place the link inside of the classroom, which then allows students to go in and view it from there. The only stuff that I typically do from a synchronous standpoint right now is I'll hold office hours for students. So if I do full one-on-one sessions, either through Teams or Zoom, depending on which application the student prefers. Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing that I'm teaching. It's of course changed certain parts of it, especially when we start getting into video editing and doing the animation work. So yeah, the challenges that we're certainly viewing right now is how do we keep these classes supported based upon the technology that we currently have available. And as Will mentioned, we had the open lab hours scheduled, and then pandemic came in and they bolted everything shut. And so the problems that we thought we had a solution to, all of a sudden the problems were back again.
Yeah, that's one thing. Again, I think that's the good and the bad of everything. We're all living through it. So there's that level of empathy that we're all kind of working through. So Jason Mitchell. Thanks, Bradley.
Yeah, so this will probably go for both me and Adam, so maybe it might streamline some of the conversation, but then Adam can chime in afterwards because he teaches a few different courses. For our LMS, we use D2L. And like Scott and some others here, we call it real-time online classrooms. So we just meet via WebEx during our normal times that we would have just met face-to-face. We do the recording. So I do tell students, as long as you show up for the first week, watch the recordings and communicate with me. Communication is important if you don't show up to class. And most of them do fairly well with that. As far as resources go, we're a vocational college, so most of our stuff is hands-on. And so some examples here for our Windows Network Administration course, we have moved to the MOAC, Microsoft's online lab environment. Does increase the course fees, but it's fantastic resources. Otherwise, outside of that, for labs, we have had the students install VirtualBox and VM and run labs that we push down to them. So they can actually create their own home lab and not depend on school or internet resources. However, some of those students don't have equipment that can do virtualization, so they can check out a laptop from our college, but then that laptop is locked down with, so they don't have admin rights to install things. And so with that, I have an option of, I do demos, and then they can watch the demos and answer a bunch of questions to ensure that they watch the video. And then some other things that we do with, say, the A+ class, we have them use their own equipment. And most of the time that works out great, using MS Info, try to seek and find information, go through their own BIOS or UEFI, things like that. And it works out really well. For our Network Plus, we actually partnership with other college and use their NDG for their labs. For our Security Plus, we do a combination of virtual boxes, VMs, CTFs. We participate in CTFs. We use Vuln boxes and just online resources. Adam and I are seeking out a cyber range, but most of these are super costly and adds to the students. I mean, there's definite benefit, but there's also a big cost to the students. As far as our enrollment goes, we are down in a number of courses and up in others. So our entry-level courses are down. And I think that's due to over the summer with COVID, a lot of people didn't vacation. So we taught more classes during the summer than we normally do. So I think people just, attended those courses. So fall and spring, our 100 level courses are down, but our 200s are up. So.
Thanks. Adam, did you have anything to?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Jason hit on a lot of the points, I would say. Our software also, for the recordings, it integrates with Kaltura, which does automatic captioning for the videos, which is very nice. That makes things simpler for us. And he noted scheduling wise, I think it's important with a lot of our students, I heard someone say kids earlier, and a lot of my students weren't kids this semester. They were adults who were looking for new work opportunities. And scheduling wise, I think, especially with all that's going on with COVID right now, a lot of them were dealing with issues which made it difficult to always be at the real-time session. And so I think being especially flexible this semester for the sake of the students was a big deal, because a lot of these people, their schedules were quite volatile. If they had children, their children's schedules were often in flux too. School schedules were changing, that type of thing. So that's one thing I'd toss out there, is being extra flexible this semester and I suspect going forward to the spring semester, same type of thing. I actually was teaching an IoT course this semester, which normally has a ton of hands-on opportunities in the lab on site at LCC. And I also happen to be teaching an electronics course, which usually has a tremendous number of online hands-on opportunities. For the electronics, we used a lot of free online simulators and had projects that were related to those. The students, I will say the one thing about an online simulator in this way is when you're changing a resistor, it's really fast to just change the value there. And so they got in a lot of experimentation playing with different types of circuits. Whereas, normally they have to go hunt it down and make sure they got the right one and look at the colors. Yeah, that's the right one. And then they put it in, hope they have it in the breadboard the right way. Here, it was really fast for them to crank out many different scenarios. And so pros, cons, just trying to look at the positive side. Whereas in the IoT course I taught, that's just a little, what we ended up doing was a lot of me sort of walking through, demoing things that I had because we couldn't go on site. So for instance, I had a lot of Arduino and Raspberry Pi components that I walked through various demonstrations on. And then I also bought a lot of smart home products, but my wife has cut me off from those now. So going forward, I'm going to have to use the recordings from fall going forward into spring here, because she said no more on any of that type of purchasing. So that's it for me.
And what's the brand of the free electronic online simulators? What is the brand?
Oh, they were various they were websites actually that they're just online. I can go hunt down some of the links from our course materials, but there were various websites where people.
Okay. You just found them. Wow. Okay.
You just have to get creative.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
Pretty popular one.
I'm sorry, what?
Tinkercad.
Tinkercam? Okay.
CAD. TINKERCAD.
Okay. All right. Cool. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to start getting my windows keep moving all over. Larice.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic.
Great. At Wayne County Community College, we use something called Ultra Blackboard Collaborative. It's a live stream. So instead of being with the face-to-face class, you live with your student. It works almost like Zoom, but it allows the student to be a lot more interactive, especially teaching computer classes outside the classroom and online. You need to be able to have that visual. You get to use the whiteboard. And what I found successful in that category is the video. So what I do, I have like tab videos or YouTube videos that I add on the Blackboard Ultra Collaborate. And a lot of the students use that because it's a lot easy for them to interact with the teacher. We also use MindTab, but I changed my MindTab. You can customize it in Cengage. So rather than using the regular MindTab for your class, you can go in and customize it. So that way you having your student log into one portal and remain in that portal, and they can go to different various sections in the portal. So that's also being successful. So that's about everybody basically saying similar things that they're doing that I'm also doing. Google also have a lot of interesting things that you can add to your class to be a lot more interactive so that you're not just reading PowerPoint. So basically that's what I'm doing at Wayne County.
Thank you. Any questions for Larice? And I failed to get, if anybody had any questions for Jason or Adam, I kind of moved along a little fast.
Yeah. But like somebody also said that with this, I try to be a lot more flexible with the students because not everybody can get on the lab section, especially with the class and with all that's going on. So I besides the class, I do have my office hours on Collaborate. So I found that evenings for my students work, and if they're in the classroom with not like a lot of other students, you get them to kind of talk and ask more questions. So I use that, and I also use the participant tab in Blackboard Collaborative Ultra, where even though you're in the Ultra section, you can have different rooms. So because I'm at a community college, all my students are not at the same level. So, but I don't want the other student to know who knows what and who don't know. So I open different sections in Collaborate Ultra that different students can be in it, and I know who needs what help. I found that also helped to keep with the retention.
Is Collaborate Ultra, is that a Blackboard product?
Yes, it is. It's Blackboard.
Okay. All right.
That's the more up to date
Okay. All right.
product.
Well, great. Thank you. Marty.
Let me turn my mic on. So we were going through a transition from Moodle to Canvas for our learning management system when the original pandemic hit. And we had only like a pilot group using Canvas. I stuck with Moodle. And then over the summer, we forced everyone into Canvas. Along with that, in case people don't know, there is a thing that we do at Valley, at Kalamazoo Valley, called Quality Matters. We make everyone get certified through Quality Matters for online instruction. I don't use any of the Cisco stuff, but I know our networking teacher does. She's not here today. She's tied up in other meetings. We use Zoom for online meetings. We call it, instead of calling it a live stream, we have remote Zoom classes. I don't teach any of those. I teach entirely online, which I've always wanted to do. And it always amazed me that the people said, oh, it's easier. And I'm like, it is not easier. And it's funny because now what I've realized is I only want to teach online when students have another option to take like a regular class, because if they wanted to be in a regular in-seat class and they're in a entirely online class, they're not happy. So that's been a challenge for me. Our IT staff built virtual machines, and we have quite a few of those, so the students can log in and do some of their work through that if they don't have machines at home. We've also provided laptops to students, which was nice. We had some computer carts on wheels, and they just converted those all to take-home computers for students. Our enrollment's way down. Yeah, I don't want to give you a number, but it's really bad. For an example, we used to teach our programming logic class. We would have 5 or 6 sections every semester. We're down to 3, and we're having trouble filling 3 sections. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. It was good meeting everybody.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thanks, Marty. Let's go ahead.
Someone had
a what?
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you moved on already. Someone had mentioned a grant that they got for hardware. It was early on. It was the second or first, maybe the first person who spoke. And I don't remember. Was it grant? What grant was that?
It was the Skilled Trades Equipment grant from, it actually was a number of years ago. It was in 2015. So it was a one-time thing. They haven't done that again, but I can't remember the total amount. Maybe Keith remembers the total amount that they gave out to the state, but I was fortunate to get about $400,000 worth. And so I was able to buy servers and all the gear that we needed to support the classrooms. And I'm still using it today, and it's been great.
Yeah, and you know, the way technology moves, you need like 400,000 every 3 or 4 years just to update all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's one of my concerns is how do I sustain what I have, and still trying to figure out different methods. But fortunately, we've got enough horsepower in that to last us for a while yet. So we'll see.
Thank you.
I just add on to that. That's a good lesson learned for us. I mean, the grant was wonderful, but I'm not sure that we really planned, for obsolescence and, tucked money away so that we can, replace it on the next iteration. So again, grant money's great, but you got to operationalize it as well.
Yeah, that was a $50 million grant, and they broke it out. I think close to 18 schools got anywhere between, I'll say, for example, KVCC got $4.5 million. A lot of it went to different places. And so I know, and Lansing got it has broke off into, into prosperity zones. So it was a great deal. So, okay. Let me get to Akina.
Yeah, a lot of the things that were stated by my colleagues Dee and Laurice were true. I'm at Wayne County Community College as well. And the LMS that we're using is Blackboard. A lot of the features using Blackboard Collaborate, unfortunately, weren't working for some of my colleagues. So they resorted to Zoom, which was frowned upon by administration. Well, I would say fortunately, they were able to have some teachers still utilize Zoom because Collaborate just wasn't cooperating. So some of the students didn't see it as user-friendly and they weren't able to use some of the features that were there. So, but everything else that they shared was definitely spot on.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Conrad.
Yes, I'm Conrad from Wayne County Community College. For the last semester, previously I was using the Zoom, but information getting to me was that the institution wanted everyone to use the Blackboard Collaborative Ultra. So I had to migrate to that platform. And I found it as convenient as Zoom. And I'm still using it. And regarding the software for the class, for instance, I utilize MindTab, and I've found MindTab from Cengage very, very helpful. And especially both the actual lecture-based classes and the programming. It has the auto-grading feature that makes it quite easy for instructors to have the work graded for the students. The only problem I had was that I have students log into Blackboard for PowerPoint lecture notes and MindTab to complete the homework exercises and projects. But my intention for the spring is to have an integrated format on Blackboard wherever the students will log in, they're able to access the MindTab features and everything that they need from one location on Blackboard. So far that's been working, though this is really a challenge. And also we have had this low enrollment. We have tried to virtually communicate to students to see if we can improve the recruitment for the spring, but it's been really a challenge, to get enough students to register for classes. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. So let's see. I feel like Tanisha and Michelle White have just been following me around.
Yes, I know you like it.
Did you guys have anything to add? And then what is it? Lion, is that correct? Leon or Lion, Michelle Turner? Okay, we'll catch up. So now let's talk about equipment, because that's one of the things, and also kind of mix it in to where I think that's one of the things that that's been interesting in the conversation. A lot of you use different formats and different things or different equipment. I'm interested to know, and I think others are as well, is what have you incorporated equipment wise and software wise strictly because of what we're living through right now? And then what are you going to, what's been the silver lining? What have you done that's been better and you're not going to go back to when we go back to normal? So Jason.
Yeah, back to normal. Can you repeat it again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Jason, say for example, has there been some silver lining? We've had to really focus, and faculty have really had to, go through this process and rethink how they teach. What have you done over this process, whether you've incorporated new things into how you teach, that you've looked at now and go, you know what, I'm going to stick with this. You know, I used to do it a certain way, but when we go back to normal, like I said, what has been the silver lining that, hey, I like how this has kind of forced me to do something different?
Right. Well, we were always looking to move to online modality, and across the CIT board anyway, a lot of people said not possible. And then we had 4 days to make it possible. And now it's I want to say thriving in certain areas for sure. And so I think we will adopt a modality, make it better once we have more time to look at the tools and integration into directly into our LMS. But so right now we're looking at, yes, continuing to do an online modality, either real-time online classroom, or I've been starting last summer looking at CBE, competency-based education, for our cyber defense, cyber degree. So yeah, it made it possible, I guess. It gave us the big push we all needed to make it happen.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Scott.
So for me, the biggest thing was, as I mentioned, I had to redesign or develop the courses in one of my classes because the hardware that they would use, where they would actually fit, touch and build networks, switches and gear like that, they didn't have access to. So I will probably look at continuing to utilize the stuff I created so that they can work with their home equipment, or install, a virtual box or something like that for some of the labs and the networking. May look at GNS3 as an option. I looked at it once before and just felt it was more cumbersome, but I've tried to give hand feed students a lot of the material that they would need. So I'd give them, for example, in the networking class, I would give them packet captures that I had done, and then ask them to go out and analyze the data from it and try and tell me, okay, based on what you see, what's going on. And then for the various modules throughout the course, whether it was looking at TCP connections and understanding, three-way handshakes, or DHCP and understanding how that operated, being able to do the packet captures and look at that. So in some cases, they were able to do it on their own networks. In some cases, I provided it. So that, for me, the one benefit by doing this is obviously the equipment that we're talking about using, I'm not going to have to replace it in the future. In fact, we may be able to eliminate some of it as long as I can continue to do this. Keith had mentioned the obsolescence issue associated with the equipment. As we know, more and more things are going to an operating in the cloud type of environment. So I may find that we're transitioning more and more of our courses to be cloud-based. Businesses are wanting to get more cloud-based education out of the students anyway. So yes, they, there's some instances where they may never touch a server. They may never touch a switch. So I know that in my curriculum, we have to start looking at more cloud-based certifications from the standpoint of either AWS or Azure. But as far as the silver lining for me, I will say that I don't know that I would call this a silver lining as much as I would say that the amount of work and effort on me to grade the material that is now uploaded as like an online class has increased. Yeah. I'm pretty old school. A lot of times what I would do is, even though we would have in-class sessions, face-to-face classes, I'd walk around and work with the groups and say, show me what you've done. I'd sign off on it that they did it, and that was it. All I ever had to do was put a score in. All my time of grading was as part of the classroom. Now I got all these documents and things they've uploaded that I got to open up and try to read through and figure out what they've done. So for me, the amount of, it's kind of a trade-off. I'm not driving into work, but I'm using that hour to be grading and doing these other things that I didn't have to do before. So it's definitely made the amount of effort on my part more substantial than what it was in the past. So.
No, and that's one of the things I try and tell, my faculty is that, create these boundaries for yourself, because most of you are finding yourself answering and working emails 24/7. You just sit down at your computer Saturday night and answer an email. Well, next thing you know, all your students expect you to respond at Saturday night at 7 o'clock. And so that's where you almost have to create these boundaries and expectations of students that, hey, I have to do other things outside of this. So yeah, thank you for that. Eric.
So, so this new experience has allowed me to, develop my classes to be a little more dynamic. So using online resources like through Cengage or through AWS, we had a challenge of how we were going to bring in those non-traditional students. When we had classes during the days, they couldn't make it because of jobs or other things that were happening in their lives. So right now, being able to provide things more online, it may or may not matter regardless when the classes are offered. Students can still be successful without actually being on site, right? So I'm probably going to focus a little bit more on using online resources like that to be able to communicate more with other students other than just do enrolled students or but the non-traditional ones as well, because we're trying to get a little more focus with them, especially your frontline workers and things like that, to try to label them to come to class, maybe not physically if they have any challenge getting to school. So if we go back to what you call normal mode of operation post-COVID, I still like to be able to work with that type of student and still allow them to be able to be successful, even though they may or may not be able to be on site. So to be able to leverage those online resources that way.
Yeah. Is there for this is MindTap the only kind of canned? I only use the word canned lightly because you manipulate it, but for networking are there other types of softwares out there to be used? Scott or Eric?
I use the Lab Sim from TestOut as a supplement because it has videos, it has fact sheets, it has demonstrations, and then it has the ability for them, in some cases, to do demos as well as practice quizzes. So, and there is an integration piece into a lot of learning management systems. I actually just download it to a CSV file and import it into my gradebook manually. But I find, some students like it, some students don't. I mean, I hear a lot of it's busy work type of approach, but I think it's good for the students to hear the things that they need to know from another source besides myself. Yeah. And so I like to enforce that and have them do the work. And for the most part, most of them like it, but it is time consuming for them. And I have to take that in consideration as I work through the material that I have to expect them to do. And I'm going to guess, if I were to ask this, most probably of your networking classes, your basic networking class for Network Plus, I'm guessing is a 3-credit course. Mine's 4 credits with 5 contacts because of the amount of hands-on that I give them, because I feel that's really truly a feeder class into everything else they're going to do in the program, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's operating systems. They have to have that as a basis. So we really hit hard, not only the networking for the Network Plus, but then we also are a Cisco shop and do the CCNA. So they're really getting a really good background and understanding of networking when they go on to tackle some of these other courses.
Marty.
Hey, yeah, I wanted to add to that. The Cisco, there's a Cisco. I can't talk to it because I'm not in it. But our networking lady, our networking instructor, she uses a Cisco Academy, Cisco Training Academy. I think they partner with Pearson Education. I guess the silver lining for me personally is just opening everyone's eyes to how easy this really isn't to do. How before, and we've had some faculty changes too, but would have faculty say that this couldn't be done, and all of a sudden here we are doing it, and that was rewarding for me, or that was a silver lining in all of it. And learning some of these tools, getting Zoom like we did at the beginning of this, we kind of forget about how all that stuff just became free to everybody right away, and their response to the whole pandemic. So that was good as well. I also one of the things I left out before, I record all my lectures or I record all my demonstrations in Panato. So I use that tool as well. And I post links for the students to get to for training. But yeah, I've enjoyed it, but it's been a challenge too. One of the things that you pointed out, Kim, was not being available or making time for yourself. I actually give my students my, and I get grief from this all the time, but I actually give them my cell number, so they text me all the time. Yeah, I will respond when I can and if it's appropriate, and but they like having it and they don't abuse it. So yeah, I do that as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes I regret it.
Adam.
Sure. A positive is I was going to be streaming anyway. And so I have nice ring lights, nice backdrop. I have a nice mic here. I have a nice Yamaha mixer. Like, so I have the equipment to do online stuff relatively well. Doesn't mean I always use it correctly, but as someone else had noted, I also love working with, I think it was Bradley who was in here earlier. I like working with Adobe products for editing when I'm doing something up that's nice. I don't do that too often, honestly, but when I do, I get to use those. And so there are those skills and those resources which have proved helpful. It seems like a little thing, but when you're, when your presentation is a nice online presentation, it's a nice thing for the students. And I guess if there's one other thing I'd toss out, it's that I like seeing the interaction in the discussion forums, which you don't always see. When it's online, you have the benefit where your shy students who aren't quite as comfortable engaging in real time, in a real-time classroom, and they're going to give feedback to this other student related to something they've done in real time. For some students, that's asking a lot of them. But if you put them in a discussion forum where they can think about it and on their own time and without feeling like they have to, be overly exposed, they actually give really insightful feedback. And so I like seeing that type of interaction. I actually think that's a pro in the sense that in a real-time classroom, you might not see some of those students shine in that same way, just because of their nature. And so I think that's a good thing too.
Great. Thank you. Will.
No, I agree with what Adam said. I think a lot of my students that I've seen in the classroom who don't say a thing do really come out in the assignments where there's more writing or more discussion boards involved. So that's a huge plus. Because some of them, it's like, come on, we got to do something here. And then the writing assignments, they really look great. And I echo a few other sentiments about, now my dean knows that, this isn't the easier option. I've been trying to do online for, 10 years now. And he's like, you just want to sit home and do nothing. And it's like, it's not like that. There's a lot of upfront work that happens. So maybe his awareness is a huge takeaway for me. Because he's like, how busy are you? So I'm like, hey, let's have fun for a semester. Every time a student asks me a question, I'm going to CC you on a response. That lasted for about a week. He's just like, you're sending me way too many emails. I'm like, yes, because it's not easier. One of the, more technology inclined items is VMs. In my operating system courses and my server courses, Linux courses, when we're on campus, I'm not worried about resources. I know my lab computers can handle the software. But then my students can't do homework at home because their machines are not powerful enough. They have the wrong version of the operating system. Perhaps it's not a legal version of the operating system. You know all the stories. And so, not that I'm 100% thrilled with it. MindTap partnered with one of the Microsoft tools. I don't remember which one it is. They actually have a virtual environment where it's all web-based. So that does give those students with limited resources the ability to do the VMs at home. And so I'm hoping to develop that a little bit further and get away from having to buy a VMware license every year, then send out the email to everybody, then answer 15 questions about, well, it won't install properly. I'm like, well, because you installed the 32-bit instead of the 64-bit. So I'm hoping to get more of the virtual stuff cloud-based and move on from there. Now, lessons learned. I have an AWS exercise. Make sure your students turn off their machines. They get like 2 or 3 months for free, and then all of a sudden my students call me, she's like, well, I keep on getting these $12 a month charges. What is this? I'm like, did you delete your machine? No. Same thing with Azure. I got the free academic version, and then I got a bill for almost $600 because I left the server running. Thankfully, Microsoft said, oh, yeah, we see how that can be confusing, and they refunded all my money. But again, I think we're going to be moving to that format. You know, Scott, I wish I had the time and energy to make up my own machines and connect into them virtually. That would be fantastic. I'm just overwhelmed as it is, and kudos to you for doing so. But no, the biggest thing is that, you know, showing other people that we can do this virtually, and then finding resources that allow the students to complete the assignments if they don't have the needed equipment at home. Are my two biggest things right now that I'm still working on, but happy that more people are aware of.
Have any of you used, so I teach as an adjunct for Fair State University, and one of the things that they utilize as part of providing a virtualization environment to their students, and it's not necessarily cheap, but I use it and I like it. It's called SkyTap. Have any of you ever heard of SkyTap or used SkyTap? SkyTap is a virtual environment where I create the VMs up front, and it's called an environment. So I generate a master environment, 5, 6, 7 VMs, and then I copy it. And then what you can do is create a sharing portal, which basically you give the students a link. It's their own private link. It can be password protected, and it's an remote desktop connection, RDP connection into that environment. So they get from me a pre-configured VM environment with 2, 3, 4 virtual machines that I've set up with the storage and the memory they need. You can have multiple networks. They can connect to each other. And that's what I deploy for those students because they don't have resources at home. And Ferris doesn't necessarily have the infrastructure for me to be able to do that. So SkyTap, I do know that, and you can set limits so that after 10 minutes of inactivity, it suspends each of the machines, and you're not charged for it at that point in time. So I know it's not cheap, but because Ferris is always telling me, please free up resources you're not using, delete the ones that no longer are needed so that they can free up the amount of disk space and the amount of environments that they have. But if you're looking for a way to configure an environment that you can manage and you can control, SkyTap is a great one to look at.
Well, thanks, Scott. Conrad, what has been a blessing for you or a silver lining for you?
Presently, I see the new situation as the way it's going to be, even if we say things normalize in the next couple of months. I don't think there's going to be any going back. You know, so somehow I'm imagining getting used to the situation we are all experiencing. And I know there's a possibility the state says, okay, there is, you know, the COVID's gone down. Now everyone can get back to normal, even though there will still be a few classes face-to-face, but majority of the classes based on the experience with what we have passed through, because really I anticipated a virtual classroom, but probably in the next 10 years, but we just have it right before us. We're compelled to get into that because of the situation we are in. So there are things that I'm not going to get back to as a result of this. I love the MindTab that I utilize for my programming classes. There's something they have called the sandbox whereby where the students can log in and really execute the programs they write to see if they really run without errors. And it's got auto grading. I used to grade manually, and it used to be a lot of work for me, but with the situation that we are in, I have the system grade my work for me. So that is another benefit of most of what I'm able to do a whole lot, without, putting in a lot of effort like I used to. So those are some of the benefits I have. And then finally, to have, I'm going to work with Cengage to integrate the Mind tab into the Blackboard interface. So they don't have to log out. You don't have to be dealing with multiple interfaces. You just deal with one, Blackboard, because the Mind tab is now integrated into the Blackboard. So you can do everything from Blackboard. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. Okay, so I want to be mindful of your time. We just have a few minutes remaining. So one of the things I like to ask, and I've asked each group, so, coming into this afternoon, did we hit the bases? I mean, are there things that you're looking to talk about that we haven't talked about yet? Or something that you would like to know or ask a specific question? We'll start with you.
One of the conversations that keeps popping up on our campus is certification for credit. I'm not even sure that's the correct terminology. But I have an IAS 210 course that the ultimate goal would be to become Net Plus certified. If I have a student comes in, already has Net Plus, can I award him credit? I mean, do you folks do that, or is it against school policy? You do?
Yes, we call it credit for prior learning.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is we have a form that they fill out. They have to provide evidence. We accept the current certification and one prior, but nothing earlier than that.
Okay.
And they get credit for the course. So we just set it up that way, and the students get credit for, credit
Now,
for the rest of the program.
Do they still pay for it, or is there
No.
some? Okay.
No. And that's one of the cool things that we've done too, is in our relationship that we have with the secondary schools as part of the career and technical centers, they're trying to push their students to become certified in a lot of A+ and CompTIA.
Right.
So it's a great way from a marketing point of view to try to encourage those students and go, hey, you've got your certification. If you come to our school, we'll give you credit for that. And it's a huge marketing piece that we try to use with the students as well.
Yeah, and that's what I noticed in my area. I'm south of Detroit. A lot of the what do you call it, CTEs or CT, the voc tech schools.
Yeah, CTCs.
Yeah, okay. They're really pushing for their students to get hardware certified, Net Plus certified. I'm like, well, great, that's my classes. What am I going to do? No. But I think we could, and I've started the conversation with my dean, and he doesn't know. He's not a tech guy. So I'll definitely bring that idea back to him.
If you want to shoot me an email or put it in the chat, I can send you a copy of the form we use so that you can see, because it's not only for certifications, but it's for other types of prior learning as well.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. That's actually a statewide initiative right now. There's a grant that all the local CTEs across the state of Michigan high schools are trying to find common credit, credentials that schools are using.
Okay, that makes sense, because I'm literally responding to an email right now, the high school my boys go to, and they want copies of all my intro courses syllabi to see if it lines up with the content they're teaching.
Yeah, and so it's really, and I can send out, actually it is a spreadsheet that shows every community college and all of the different credentials that they've connected with on their, it's linked to the school credentials. So, but there's a grant that paid for that through the schools, and they're pushing it out to see. So, which
I'm not opposed to. I think it's a great idea, because I can start teaching more advanced stuff instead of, this is a network, this is topology. It's
a lot like what Scott says, though. It's a great recruiting opportunity, because you look at it kind of like, oh, what am I going to teach? but it actually draws more students into your program overall for the secondary. So it's a
Pathway.
positive.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right, thanks.
Marty, you had
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been trying to resolve some things while we're going. I did have a question. Is anybody doing any certification towards or any training towards Amazon Web Services? It seems to be a highly in-demand skill right now, and we're not doing anything. I just didn't know if anyone else was pursuing that yet.
We are not, but it's something that we have a cloud class where the students work towards CompTIA's Cloud Plus certification. But, and this is something I'll bring up as a question as well. I know many of you teach the operating system classes. With Microsoft basically retiring all the MCSA certifications, which are 3 servers, 70, 77, 40, 41, and 42 for the 2016 version, and not replacing them with anything for 2019, it puts us in a quandary when I got 3 operating system classes based on Windows Server. And so I think those are still valid skills that the students need to learn. Our employers are still doing a lot of on-prem, but I'm thinking it's going to have to possibly be consolidated into 1, maybe 2 courses. But I'm going to start looking more heavily at the role-based certifications that Microsoft has so that we can start doing Azure Administrator and things of that nature, because it's going that way. Does anybody have an Azure Administrator course curriculum yet? Yeah, and see, I asked the same question a year ago at the roundtable, and nobody was doing any cloud stuff. And I can't say that I've gone any further with it. Our big thing was trying to get cybersecurity on board, and so we are aligned with the cybersecurity courses for CompTIA, pen tests, the analyst, and the advanced security practitioner. So now my next focus is going to be on the cloud side of things and trying to move it there. And then, as I mentioned, I use Test Out curriculum to supplement. And Test Out has always had 3 server courses that were designed towards those certifications.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not sure what they're going to do yet because Microsoft has gotten rid of them.
Just to follow up on what he said related to Cloud Plus, we just recently had a session with business leaders locally where we were getting feedback in terms of what they wanted to see cloud-wise. And we gave them options focusing on AWS, Azure, even GCP, or did they want a more general, like the Cloud Plus? And our feedback was they wanted the Cloud Plus in our instance. That was the overwhelming response, was the more general, the better. So we're actually, Jason and I were working through creating a class that will be probably very similar to Scott's, focused on the Cloud Plus, since we're CompTIA focused here too. So.
Yeah, we've been running that class for a number of years. We call it, what is it? Cloud computing and virtualization, because we bring virtualization into it as well. And students have to set up tenants essentially in AWS and Azure, and they've got to make them talk to each other as well through a VPN.
okay. Anything else for the good of the group? Tanisha, I'm going to pick on you. You've sat in on several of these. What if you had to kind of give some feedback on everything that you've heard from all the ones that you've? Tanisha's been my partner in crime the last.
I know.
She's sat in on all these with me. So, what would you kind of give some feedback in terms of if you kind of had to sit back and listen and say what you've heard? What kind of thing? What would you kind of summary would you give?
Compiling a list of all the resources, especially with the systems, the different network, the systems that they're using at the different institutions. So each could either one be uniform or try to at least use some type of system that's uniform, that if we do have a student that comes to Wayne County Community College, transfer to Lansing or somewhere else, at least they'll be familiar with the software that they're using, as well as trying to see what professional development for faculty to use various systems so they could be familiar with them. Because I know with us, when we had with the Blackboard for us, it was difficult for some of the faculty that weren't involved in technology. So that was a difficult part for them. However, because Zoom is easy, Blackboard is more detailed. It was some difficulty, but the people that once they got familiar with that system, they were allowed to use it. So if it was something that we could even do a snapshot of the different systems, I think that'd be great. And then we can go back to our administration and let them know, look here, this is something what IT is doing at Lansing Community College or somewhere else that may be useful for us and our students.
Sure. Yeah, and that's kind of what I feel too. I think what we'll look at is I'll lay that out here so you can kind of collectively see because you've really labeled a lot of different mechanisms that you're using. And I know it'd be way too difficult to collectively everyone kind of merge into one, but it's pretty incredible because, I heard, we talked about Zoom, but I've had faculty reach out to me and say, well, I think Teams might be a better way to go. Well, there's so many. It's like you've got to get good at one and just really build some foundational things. And so I really do thank you all for your time today. My head's spinning. I know for us at our school, our CIS group has been online for 3 or 4 years, and they basically have been, really doing some pretty incredible things. They offer, if they had offered intro CIS class, each semester they offer it in parallel 3 different ways. The same class gets offered face-to-face, online, or asynchronous where somebody can be at home, or synchronous so somebody can watch it at home. And so that way they can do it. They can just hit every person at if you want to watch it whenever you want to watch it, or you want to take and not interact with the instructor, or if you want to come in face to face. And so again, it's been an interesting process to work with. So again, I'll send notes out to everyone. If I really appreciate all of your time. For me today, it's been an incredible learning experience. And so I'll get the notes, the contact information, the video out to all of you. And I hope you have a wonderful end of the semester holiday.
You too. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you. You too.
Goodbye.